Welcome back to the show, everyone. The wildest week in Seahawks history continues on, and it is now Sam Darnold, the future Seattle Seahawks quarterback, and DK Metcalf being traded yesterday. A lot of news to get into. Kind of just an instant reaction sort of a video today. We'll get in more to the nitty-gritty details tomorrow and more into the latest rumors, the latest signings. There's been so much going on, it's hard to even keep track of. But let's start with Sam Darnold, the new QB1 of the Seattle Seahawks. I talked about this right after the Geno Smith trade went down. It was being reported by pretty much everyone that the Seahawks were interested in Darnold. They were going to contact Darnold. They were the front runners for Darnold. And to be honest, at first I thought, maybe that was just noise. Maybe that was just, I wasn't really buying what they were selling. But come to find out this morning that, the Seahawks are legitimately the front runners for Sam Darnold. The Vikings, I guess, just didn't want to go that expensive. And so, it does make me question the signing, because obviously the team he played for last year didn't want him on a pretty cheap deal. It's a 3-year deal, $110 million, so it's only going to be about $36 million a year. Geno Smith was looking for, reportedly, $45 million a year. So we're getting Sam Darnold for, $8 million, $9 million less or so than what Geno wanted. And Sam is also 7 years younger. So that is good when you look at it from that perspective. But then I think from the Vikings angle, why did the Vikings not want Sam Darnold for this deal? I mean, they had him last year. He won 14 games for the Minnesota Vikings last year. And yet, they're moving on. And supposedly, it's not because of J.J. McCarthy. The Vikings are actually interested in Aaron Rodgers. So that's also very interesting. But as far as the free agency options went in Seattle, if you were going to say you could either have Darnold, Justin Fields, or Aaron Rodgers, I'd take Sam Darnold. I did not want Aaron Rodgers. I was not interested in him. He brings a lot of drama, a lot of just unnecessary baggage that I didn't want in Seattle. I don't think Seahawks fans would have embraced Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. I don't know if I would have wanted to embrace him as my quarterback. So it sounds like he's going to probably go to the New York Giants, and his career can continue to fizzle out for another bad team. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Sam Darnold's going to have an opportunity now. The Seahawks have the most cap space. Going into today, they had the most cap space in the NFL. Now, that is no longer the case, obviously, with the deal with Sam Darnold. But they still have some open cap space. They're going to be able to pay some offensive linemen. And looking at the draft, they have 5 picks in the top 100 and 3 in the top 60. They have 1 in the first round, they have 2 in the second round, and they have 2 in the third round. That's courtesy of the Geno Smith and DK Metcalf trades. So realistically, they could probably add 5 starters in the draft. A couple of, hopefully, offensive weapons. They definitely are going to need another receiver. That's very clear. We're going to be talking long-term about which receiver it could be. I have a ton of options in my head, whether we want to take a receiver in the first round, the second round, the third round, or later on in the draft. I have guys for all those rounds. We're going to be talking about that. A lot of draft rumors coming up on this channel. But we could also still draft a quarterback. That's the thing is, Sam Darnold, it is a 3-year deal, but really it's only a 2-year deal. The last year is not that much money committed to him in year 3 of that deal. It's only $55 million guaranteed, which is, I think, pretty reasonable for a guy who is coming off a season when he went 14-3 through 35 touchdown passes, had a 102.5 passer rating. All things considered, I understand it was, you could say it was a fluke because he's never been good before, and you could say that he benefited a lot from having Justin Jefferson. That's true, he did. But at the same time, he was a top probably 7 or 8 quarterback in the league last year. 35 touchdowns and 12 picks is no joke. That's almost a 3-to-1 ratio. And anytime a quarterback wins 14 games in a season, you make your heads nod. He had a good season. So considering the year he had, I think $55 million guaranteed, I think Sam probably was thinking he could get a lot more than that. And maybe he could have gotten a lot more than that if he hadn't have floundered out in the playoffs. Of course, it was a bad game against the Rams, and that does give me some pause because it's like, well, the Rams are in our division, and they clearly know how to stop him. That's true. That does give me some pause. But I think the Seahawks' idea here is that we're going to stay relevant, we're going to continue to push, we're going to continue to try to improve our offense, and also open some doors in the draft, potentially open some doors in free agency, and hopefully they will still draft a quarterback. I think Jackson Dart, I still would love Jackson Dart on this team. I think if you could draft him, sit him for a year behind Sam Darnold, that would be massive. And then if Sam Darnold succeeds again, you could either trade him next year or you could trade Jackson Dart. I mean, you never know what will happen, but most likely Sam Darnold, I understand it's a 3-year deal. I'm not sure if he'll be in the Seahawks for longer than 3 years. I don't know if that's going to be the case. So I still think drafting a quarterback would be a good idea. But yeah, out of all the free agent quarterbacks, Sam was the best option, and the Seahawks went out and got the best option available. So yeah, I'm happy with this move. I want to hear what you guys think, so let me know down in the comments. But let's move on to the DK Metcalf trade. The other big piece of news, this broke yesterday afternoon. DK Metcalf being traded to the Steelers for a second-round pick. Now, I see a lot of fans really, really mad about trading DK. I will say, I think he was probably maybe the most polarizing player in Seattle, just because I know there was also a group of fans that did not like him. But I actually think DK probably has the largest fan base out of any player in Seattle. I mean, everybody that I know has a DK Metcalf jersey. I have a DK Metcalf jersey back home, and it's a bummer I'm not going to be able to get to wear that jersey anymore. That's too bad. Well, I guess I could still wear it. I do like the jersey, but point is, DK Metcalf, whether you love him or you hate him, the truth is he would still be a Seattle Seahawk if he wanted to be a Seattle Seahawk, right? The Seahawks were willing to pay him good money. They weren't willing to pay him $33 million a year. That's what he's getting in Pittsburgh. That's almost as much as we're paying our quarterback. I mean, that's insane. So the Steelers were willing to pay him, and DK Metcalf asked for a trade. Remember this. He asked for a trade. And you could try. I mean, I understand if you really want to blame it on the Seahawks and say, well, they should have paid him what he wanted. Sure, but also they would have paid him probably $25 million. DK got greedy and wanted more and wanted out. As Mariners fans, we don't blame the Mariners for not paying Alex Rodriguez what he wanted. We blame A-Rod for chasing the bag in Texas, right? It's the same thing. If you're a Seattle sports fan, that's my best analogy for it. So I don't necessarily agree with blaming the team. I would more want you guys to understand DK Metcalf wanted to leave. He didn't want to stay in Seattle. He wanted to chase the biggest paycheck he could, and he got it from Pittsburgh. So I will be rooting for him in Pittsburgh. I think Russell Wilson is going to be back in Pittsburgh from what it sounds like. Justin Fields just left for the Jets. So I will definitely be rooting for Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf in Pittsburgh. That's probably going to be my AFC team next year. I don't blame DK Metcalf for chasing the bag. I'm just saying, don't be mad at the Seahawks. They were willing to keep him here. They wanted to keep him here. It was only when he asked to leave that they decided to trade him. So if you're a fan and you're mad about DK Metcalf being gone, just understand that. It's not the Seahawks' fault that he's gone. It's his fault. It was his decision. It was his choice. As far as the compensation, a second-round pick, I do think that that's about what he was worth. I know that earlier on people were saying, could we get a first-round pick for him? You just have to understand that's where the market is, right? The wide receiver market. Devontae Adams, a bit older, but similar level receiver. He got traded for a third-round pick to the Jets from the Raiders. Stephon Diggs, last offseason, got traded for a second-round pick. Is Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, pretty similar level receivers, right? Again, Diggs is a little bit older, but Metcalf's coming off a down year, so it's hard because you're not selling him at his highest point. I understand since he came into the league, he's number 6 in touchdowns. That's really, really good. Fans will look at that and say, well, why isn't he getting paid? He should be paid like the 6th best receiver. Maybe he should, but he's coming off a down year. He's coming off an injury. His price goes down because of that. And his value on the open market goes down because of that. If we had traded him last year, we probably could have got a first-round pick back. But we kept him. He had a good season, but he got hurt. Now he gets for a second-round pick. I think that's good. I don't think there was any team that was going to trade a first-round pick for DK Metcalf. But to get a second-round pick back, I think that is a pretty solid return. Again, I wouldn't have traded him for a second-round pick, but he asked to leave. So that's why we did it. So I'm not endorsing the trade, but I'm just saying the reason it happened was not because John Schneider is an idiot. A lot of people are very mad at our general manager right now, John Schneider. But the reason that trade happened was not because John Schneider woke up one morning and said, I'm going to trade DK for a second-round pick. No, that's not what he decided at all. DK asked to go. So, again, if I was in charge, I wouldn't have traded DK Metcalf, but when he's asking to leave, that's what's going to happen, right? That's the natural consequence. And I do think that as Seahawks fans, we're going to have to just move on. Obviously, it's going to suck not having him on the team next year, but there's still a lot of potential options at receiver in the draft. We still have Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is going to be a really good wide receiver 1 next year, I think. All right, guys, let's finish off this video talking about a couple more rumors in the wildest week. This is literally the wildest week in Seahawks history that I can remember. A couple other rumors going around right now. The Seahawks are still pursuing free agent targets, especially on the offensive line. That's really good to hear. Now, they've missed out on a couple of the biggest fish in that pond. There's still a lot of good offensive linemen available. And I think the Seahawks, understanding the way Sam Darnold plays football, he does not have very good pocket escapability. And that way, he's actually very similar to Geno Smith. And so, I do think that they need to really focus on getting that offensive line set for him. On the defensive side of the ball, the Seahawks just recently extended Jarran Reed. They also extended Ernest Jones. That's 2 massive, massive contracts that they are giving out. And not massive as far as money, but massive as far as impact. Ernest Jones, $25 million for 3 seasons. When I say massive, it's massive because it really helps the Seahawks. Ernest Jones probably could have got paid a lot more than that on another team. So that's kind of the opposite of the DK Metcalf. We get into Ernest Jones for a discount. That's really good to hear. Good to see that he wants to be back in Seattle. And I think he's going to have a massive impact again because he did. I mean, he came over last year and he played a huge role in kind of that second half when the defense really kind of pulled it all together. So I think the defense is only going to keep getting better. Whether or not the offense gets better, that's what we're going to have to wait and see for. But with that being said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about all the implications of what this means. I'm going to have a comparison between Geno and Sam Darnold. We're going to really deep dive into the stats and figure out, is Darnold or Geno the better quarterback right here, right now? You're not going to want to miss that. So if you don't want to miss it, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell for notifications, and comment down below just what are your thoughts right now? What are your thoughts? It's been a wild week. I mean, a week ago, we didn't even know that DK Metcalf wanted out. And now he is gone. So, yeah, it has been a wild week in Seattle. No more Geno, no more Tyler Lockett, no more DK Metcalf. Welcome to Seattle, Sam Darnold. And with that, we'll wrap this one up. Until next time, as always, go Seahawks.